So Michigan has added a couple of wide receivers. That shouldn't surprise anybody. If you watch the Michigan passing game this year, they either threw it to Colston Loveland, they threw an incomplete pass, or they ran it. That was every play in the Michigan playbook. There were screen passes, but does that really count? I mean, you could line up a running back in the slot and throw a screen pass to him. But Michigan was such an interesting team this year. Early on in the season, they were about exactly what I thought. And then as the season progressed, they were a little bit worse than I thought. Losing games like Washington or going on the road, losing to Illinois. Like, Illinois is a good team, to be sure, but I had Michigan 9-3 before the year. Took plenty of heat for that, by the way, saying this is not a 10-win team. They end up being a 7-win team, of course, winning the game that nobody, myself included, thought was in any way, shape, or form possible. They beat, by the way, the likely eventual national champions in Ohio State. But Sherrone Moore demonstrated this year he's the right guy for the job. Sometimes you make an in-house promotion and you learn pretty quickly this isn't going to work out. I have the opposite effect, or the Sherrone Moore had the opposite effect on me watching Michigan play this season, because I think Michigan way outperformed. They beat Alabama and Ohio State to end the year. Those were landmark wins for Sherrone Moore. The Ohio State one is, of course, at the top, and there's a gap before the next one. But as they look ahead, just because they finished the season strong doesn't mean they don't still have some work to be done. Sherrone Moore is well aware of that, and they've made some notable moves in the transfer portal. So Anthony Simpson's a guy that is going to fly under a lot of people's radar because he got hurt and then was away from UMass this past season. But the season prior, he was wildly productive. Over 700 yards through the air, and he doesn't need to be great. He just needs to be good, solid, capable. This is a guy who's been around college football for several years. He was at Arizona before he spent the last couple of years with the Minutemen, which is a great, not a good, a great mascot in college football. They also brought in Donovan McCulley. Now, this is a guy who's never found his footing yet in the college football landscape. Comes over from Indiana. I don't think the expectations there are quite as substantial, but I appreciate, and it sounds simple, but it just doesn't always happen in the way that it should, particularly at programs that are capable of winning. When a team has a clear, identifiable weakness that even people outside the program can see, when the offseason rolls around, which is, of course, what we're into for all but two teams right now, you need to go and attack it. This is how I felt with Georgia adding Zachariah Branch. You watch the receivers this year, not good enough. Go get one of the top guys available. Miami wanted Zachariah Branch. They didn't land him. Georgia did. So Simpson's not as high profile of a transfer, but he is someone who has proven production at the wide receiver spot. And the question then becomes, what are you doing in the quarterback position? So this is how I think about Michigan right now in January. There's still spring practice reports. There's another transfer portal window. All sorts of dominoes are still going to fall for every college football team. But for Michigan, I think the outside national perception is look at all the momentum they have with those two huge wins over Ohio State and Alabama, and I'm not downplaying those. What I am saying is what they did in those games, to me, is not sustainable over the course of a 12-game season. And I know that because I just watched them try to do it. So they flipped Bryce Underwood from LSU. That's huge. That's great. Is he going to start right away? Is he starting week one? I appreciate you giving him the weapons that he would need if that's going to be the case, because throwing a guy into the fire and not supporting him, this gets discussed a lot in the NFL, but it's true in college football too. If you don't give a quarterback the right situation or just solid, respectable support, I don't care how talented he is, how many stars are next to his name, or how much NIL money went into getting him to flip to Michigan. He's not going to be able to succeed. So a couple of weapons there, but Michigan's going to have a lot of turnover on the roster as well, which makes them a really interesting team, because Davis Warren got hurt in the bowl game against Alabama, but from what I've read is expected to be back this fall for Michigan. I don't think that's who Wolverine fans want to see at quarterback, but they might have to see him at quarterback if Bryce Underwood's not ready to go right away. And by the way, most true freshmen are not ready immediately. Now, Dylan Raiola was this past year at Nebraska, and he showed a lot of really good things. Nebraska also went 6-6 when it looked like they were trending for an 8 or 9 win season. And the lack of a consistent passing game was absolutely a factor. Raiola missed a couple of big spots against Illinois. He had a wide open touchdown that would have won the game, and he missed him. Those are the little things that you're going to have to deal with. So if you're expecting this big bounce back resurgent season for Michigan, are you going to be able to get that from either Davis Warren or a true freshman quarterback or a combination of the two? Only if you put together a caliber roster that's at least similar to what they had this season, but you might need to take a step forward, and that's going to be hard. You've got no Mason Graham, no Will Johnson, no Kenneth Grant, to name a few of the losses, the most high-profile ones, off of Michigan's roster. So there's certainly some work to be sorted out. There are guys in there who saw meaningful snaps in 2024 that are key returners on both sides of the ball for Michigan. I expect them to be good in the trenches. I know that Sherrone Moore's game planning, game management, and run game scheme is going to be really good because I saw that all season long. But have to remember, this is still the team that when they took the field with Illinois, got out-talented. That's how it looked. How else do you explain the way that game transpired? Illinois was clearly the best team on the field. So Michigan's in a bit of a tricky spot. But I tell you the move that I really like, and I think this kid is going to absolutely, positively pop this season. That's Justice Haynes. So 5-star running back coming out of high school. He spends the last couple of years at Alabama, and they didn't run the football with him a whole heck of a lot. When Alabama had success running the ball this year, it was with Jalen Milroe. That's how their ground game found success. They were never able to maximize the potential of a guy like Justice Haynes, who can be a really good all-around physical running back. He now goes to Michigan with Donovan Edwards going out the door and Khalil Mullings also going out the door. If Justice Haynes slides in to be the number one guy, I can see him going for somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 yards. I have always liked Justice Haynes and what he brings to the table. And you know what a quarterback's best friend is? A running game. So if you're going to have Bryce Underwood come in and start right away, which I'd be here for. That'd be more exciting. That'd be more interesting. If he comes in and starts right away, you're not changing your philosophy fundamentally, and the running back position is perhaps more important at the University of Michigan under Sherrone Moore than at any other school in the country, because you have to have workhorse guys that are physical, well-rounded, shifty, and have breakaway speed, because that's how you're creating most of your explosives. So I think Michigan is on the right track to reloading. I don't know if all the pieces are there right now as we sit here in early January to be a Big Ten conference title contender. But I see the stars starting to align. I see the plan coming together, and I like what Sherrone Moore is doing. But Michigan, again, going to be a very interesting team come the fall. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.